Hi everyone, we'll just give it 1 minute before we get going, just to let everyone get in to the Zoom and get into the webinar. Okay, fantastic. I can see plenty of people joining, so we will make a start. Hello, welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the Jisc attendance monitoring webinar, and today we're really excited to showcase our updated attendance monitoring platform with you. Really, this has been built with improved performance, user experience, and security at its heart. We know it's going to have to be a stable and efficient platform to meet your compliance requirements, but it can also really be the beginning of that seamless path to full student engagement analytics and even well-being analytics, we hope. And at Jisc, we're always aware of the context within the sector, and we know that at the moment that's tough for a lot of you. So therefore, everything you see today is very much sustainably priced, and it's also comprehensively supported every step of your journey with us. So without further ado, I want to introduce who's going to be speaking to you today. And we're going to have a mixture of different types of presentations today. So I'm going to show you a few slides to introduce Jisc Learning Analytics, and most importantly, the attendance monitoring element of that. We're going to have a demonstration, so we're actually going to see the platform. And we've also got two of our wonderful user community with us today. So let me start by introducing us all. I'm James Hodgkin. I'm the head of analytics at Jisc. I'm responsible for the product. So one of them you're going to see today, which is attendance monitoring, but we also have learning analytics, all within the same platform. And we also have a series of consultancy services alongside a lot of the sort of sector support that we offer around learning analytics. And I've been working here at Jisc for 3 years now. Before that, I was at a variety of universities, most recently the University of Gloucestershire, where I implemented learning analytics. So I have lots of experience on that side of the fence as well as this side. And I'm going to hand over to Jim, who is just going to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm the Principal Technical Consultant for Data at Jisc. I work with James and Rachel and Tony and Mary being our customers. I've got a specialism in data, but also in well-being. I've been at Jisc about 3 years, and previously I was at the University of Hull forever doing a variety of things based in student support, including student attendance and engagement. I'll hand to Rachel.
So I'm Rachel Glynn, one of the senior consultants at Jisc. I'm here today to help with your questions and answers. So please use the questions and answers area of the call, and we'll gather those as we go on, make sure they're picked up throughout the meeting. Back to James.
Fabulous, thanks, Rachel. And I do also just want to point out, continuing the theme of higher education experience, that Rachel used to work at Leeds Trinity University, where she was project manager for their learning analytics project. So you can see a theme starting to develop here. And I mentioned our community. So we also have Mary Cornelius with us today from the University of Suffolk. So Mary is Head of Educational Development and Innovation. She has led institutional change for our work on digital learning, curriculum design, and played a key role implementing the university's attendance system. Mary led on embedding attendance data into institutional processes, using it to enhance student engagement, inform decision-making, and support a data-informed culture, all of which you're going to hear about today when I ask Mary some questions. And the other person on the call today is Tony Libby, who is from the University of Salford. So Tony has been at Sulfur for 32 years. I don't know if that beats you, Jim, at Hull. But he currently sits within the Central Student Administration team in a role intended to provide effective conduit between the academic and the central units, specifically to support the schools with their operational delivery. And so recognising his experience previously working in those roles, he's been moving over into the product owner role for the university's project to implement learning analytics and attendance monitoring. So he's going to have lots of interesting things to say. So we've done the introductions. I'm going to very quickly give you a bit of a history lesson because it's always great to have some context. So where did Jisc learning analytics and then attendance monitoring come from? Way back in 2015, which seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? We were talking to the sector, as we do, and it was obvious there was a real need to understand student engagement and have those tools to monitor and intervene. So there was a co-design project, and out of that came a number of things. We produced a code of practice, a senior manager's guide, which some of you may be familiar with. A community grew up, of which you're going to hear from a couple of those today. But also we were encouraged to produce some products, and that's what we did. And those went into full service in 2018, initially learning analytics, and then we developed attendance monitoring. And as I mentioned, we've fully redeveloped those platforms in 2025 because the infrastructure and the user interface needed updating, and we had an awful lot of feedback from our community, which I will talk to in a moment. So I keep mentioning the word community, and I'm going to keep talking about it because they are absolutely integral to what we do. That's both our users and that wider sector. We really do try and be a trusted partner. That's not just a phrase. We actually try to live that. So throughout your implementation, if you're implementing one of our systems and beyond, the success of this is integral to what we do. It's a lot more than just another system. As I've already alluded to, our entire team come from higher education. We've all led, built, or project managed attendance monitoring and learning analytics. The other side of that trusted element is data protection and privacy. We baked those into the redevelopment from the beginning. We pride ourselves on best practice. So from a data protection toolkit, sensitivity model that ensures only the right people see the right information. That's not an add-on for us, it's absolutely key because a lot of this data can be quite sensitive, and it's very important that the right people are getting it to intervene and act upon it. The platform has been redeveloped to help our user community achieve their goals and also to support the wider sector. We get a huge amount of feedback, as you can imagine, being Jisc. We hear an awful lot, we talk to an awful lot of people. Everything is underpinned by that collaboration and feedback. And our user community is very wide-ranging. So everything from smaller independent institutions, newer post-92, Russell groups, 2,000 students right up to 35,000 students in Scotland, Wales and England. So we have a fantastic range of institutions and people to work with. And throughout this and throughout the last couple of years, affordability has to be top of our minds. We don't shy away from that. It's absolutely key. We believe that institutions can reduce costs by making the move to our solution and working with us. And that is absolutely critical to supporting the sector. And a lot of that is about the smooth, successful adoption and reducing that cost of change in these really, really challenging times. So we work with you every step of the way to support some of the challenges you see on screen. We hear a lot about this, the impact of other projects just being too busy, lack of resource, the difficulties around change management, concerns about data protection, and data quality underpinning all of that. All of those are barriers to making the move or making a change. And what we've learned is that flexibility is the key. We offer our support wherever you are on that attendance or student analytics journey. So really, whatever your issue, whatever your barrier, whatever your requirement, I think we're pretty well set to support you in that. and our community have an awful lot of different experiences, but critically, they drive our direction as a service. And so it's time to hear from some of them, and it's time to hear initially from Mary. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing, because we're not doing a death by PowerPoint today. We're going to have a chat now. So Mary, welcome. I'm going to ask you a few questions. So let's start off with let's start at the beginning. So how did SUFFK's attendance monitoring project get started, and what were the challenges that you faced in those early days?
So we're actually one of the UK's newest universities. We gained university status in 2016, which is the year we initially started by trying to roll out the full learning analytics. So what we had hoped to achieve with that kind of immediately hit a bit of a barrier. Just moving from an FE environment to HE, we ended up not quite having the infrastructure in place. We had quite a lot of data challenges, and the project didn't go live, which led to obviously low trust and some poor collaboration. So in 2022, we reduced the scope to just digital attendance. So that helped us regain some of that trust, build more buy-in, and we did that just by focusing on the compliance aspect. Then we were able to get more collaboration from contributing teams, mostly by not asking for an overhaul of the whole data. So because we focused just on the minimum viable products, that kind of helped everyone feel like we weren't overstepping, and we actually were able to start getting the data clean. And then as attendance data came in, we were able to use that as a key engagement indicator in contributing to institutional KPIs. Then we built out a notifications and intervention system, which fed into our level 4 retention project. All of that helped raise the profile significantly. We got quite a lot of uptake, just increased uptake over the last 3 years. So basically, when we first launched it in 22-23, we had about 75% overall attendance, and it's now just under 83% so far this academic year, which we're really proud of.
I can imagine some wows in the audience. So that is good attendance. I think everyone can agree that, and also great to see that shift and all that hard work. These are complicated pieces of work to get to that point, and I guess you have to collaborate with an awful lot of people. So what did that collaboration look like? How did you pull together that community?
Yeah, so obviously cross-departmental collaboration within the institution was significant and critical, because we are a small university. Probably quite a lot of universities feel the pinch like we do. We had very minimal resources within my team. I've got a team of, at the time it was like 6-7 people, so we didn't have all the expertise within the team to do all of the technical and data work that was required. So I worked really hard to build collaborations with our digital and IT teams, student records teams, just to get the data in place, getting it to that minimum viable product, and then starting to look at how we could develop that in the future. Again, because of our limitation in resource in terms of getting the messaging out to students and supporting students, we collaborated with the student life team and our academic administrating team, because they're kind of the frontline members of staff who can actually get that message out and deal with students directly, which was not something we were really able to do as much as we would like. We did a little bit, but we just didn't have the resources to do it as much as we'd like. So that was vital for us. And then also just the community, just being part of the Jisc community, the learning analytics community, has been really helpful. Just knowing that other people have the same issues that we've had, and being able to swap stories and complaints has been quite helpful. And just the generosity of other users to share how you've all built your processes, how you've addressed different challenges, that has been invaluable, because obviously, as we all know, not all suppliers are able to kind of foster that collaborative community. So that just reduces, again, time spent for all of us in knowing what might work best in what situation. So that was really helpful.
Oh, that's great. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with a collective moan, is there? Yes, and share our pain. So yeah, hopefully we can facilitate that. How do you get the thinking top level now? So clearly you did a huge amount of work sort of building this from the ground up, but there's that other side of it, isn't there? This more strategic leadership element. How did you secure that and ensure that what you were doing aligned with all of those key strategies?
Yeah, I mean, it was all about messaging and trying to frame the messaging in a way that kind of would get senior leaders to pick up their antennae a little bit. So we started off, because we were just going with the compliance, that was where we got the buy-in initially. So we just focused on how we would be able to meet our compliance requirements, particularly around apprenticeships, UKVI requirements, and student finance. And then as we're cleaning the data further and able to make better use of it, we were then able to tie attendance into other institutional initiatives like our retention projects, building in pastoral supports, our belonging and engagement initiatives, operationalization projects as well. So that all meant we could then start adapting the messaging a little bit further to go into what costs were saved due to, for example, our the level 4 retention project and operational efficiency. With some automated processes, we were able to save the institution quite a chunk of money already so far in the project, and that has really helped get continued senior buy-in as well. So it just came down to adapting the messaging as we completed different phases of the project and were able to show the impact.
I'm really pleased you had that experience, because that's partly what the whole point of this webinar today is that attendance monitoring is compliance, and there's an element of it just has to be done, but actually what it can then lead to is quite significant and can be quite strategic as well. So it's great that you experience that. I'm just going to jump on, because I'm aware we've got lots of other things to talk about. I'm interested in what's next for the data side of things, where you feel like you're going, and what the sort of end goal might be. We talked about attendance monitoring as that starting point, but how have you seen the sort of the data change, and where that might allow you to go in the future?
Yeah, it's well, where we would like to go, the wish list is obviously it'd be great to move into the full learning analytics sphere, but I think we're still a little ways off in terms of being able to demonstrate to the institution just what that impact is. So that's kind of more of our short-term focus over the next couple years, is to look at some of the other data streams we've pulled in as part of this project. So our personal academic coaching processes, things helping members of staff tie the link in their heads between, say, the learning environment data and attendance data. And as we kind of start showing people what that can achieve and what the impact will be, and then hopefully we'll be able to go full swing into learning analytics in the future. But yeah, just being able to demonstrate the value and the impacts that can have, not just on the university's bottom line, but also on the student experience and student retention, continuation, progression, and hopefully attainment as well, if we're able to build in better interventions. And yeah, also in the short term, just continuously improve our data as well, which is an ongoing fight, I think, for everyone.
And was that, did you feel like it was a helpful byproduct of all of this was the data? It pushed your data in the right direction?
Oh, it has been instrumental in setting the stage for some serious data work here. Yes. It's been huge. Sometimes we've made ourselves an annoyance to other teams, but it has been huge.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, Mary. That was fascinating. But we've got more to come. So I am going to hand over to Jim now, who is going to ask Tony a few questions.
I am indeed. Nothing too tricky, Tony, don't worry. So first one is, what were the challenges at the University of Salford that you had previously with attendance monitoring in your systems and processes? And what have been the key benefits of implementing the solution that you have?
Okay, thanks, Jim. So I guess firstly, just to go back in time a little, we had a previous engagement system that effectively only returned VLE or Blackboard engagement for us. We did attempt to land the attendance monitoring element of that, but for various technological and infrastructure reasons, that never landed. So we ended up in a position that was accepted. So we were basically monitoring our engagement on VLE as opposed to attendance, which in itself then created a whole cottage industry of work across the institution, trying to capture that data in their own ways. And then we moved to kind of the pandemic and post-pandemic, and a recognition of a need to kind of identify and monitor attendance, whether that be online in the immediate post-pandemic or actual face-to-face attendance. And within the Jisc platform, that functionality works the same, so that worked for us. So that was the challenge and the reason we moved forward with the product Jisc provide, and in maybe a slightly different position to Mary's institution. We bought into the overall engagement analytics platform with the added benefit and the key one for us that it provided the attendance monitoring. So by way of benefits in moving forward with that, the key one for us is that it identifies near point in time data to highlight those at-risk students. So I've come out of schools operationally where the challenge always was to identify the students who weren't there during induction and those first few weeks, those first crucial few weeks to reach out and provide that opportunity to provide support, that one-to-one discussion. Again, going back to that cottage industry, inevitably, you're looking at paper sheets and identifying who wasn't on that sheet. And clearly at that time of year, all the other pressures of resource, inevitably lots of students would slip through the net. So the key one for me is it identifies that near point in time data to provide that and reach out to the students. We have a student experience team within each school. So the challenge for them all along was, again, instead of committing and concentrating their resource on reaching out to the students, the majority of the time was actually generating the data to identify who they were. And inevitably an endpoint quite often was, by the time they identified who they were and reached out to those students, they'd kind of dropped off and we'd lost them as students and not had that opportunity to provide support. So that's the key benefit. Other things, and crucially now, the attendance monitoring specifically underpins kind of regulatory and compliance attendance monitoring requirements. So we're talking student visa, Tier 4 students, degree apprenticeships. We've got quite a significant body of those where we have to return, and any other, the PSRB student bodies as well. Other added benefits are kind of supports our personalised academic support policy, so the personal tutoring policy. Again, in the past, we had personal tutors who would kind of meet up with students in those first few weeks, and the students would blindly nod and reassure our tutors they were engaging and attending classes, and they had to take it at face value. Now we've got the data on the screen in front of them, and actually that can open up that discussion and hopefully open up that opportunity to provide support rather than just accept what the student was saying. Going back to the timely point in time, engagement data. What we've now got is a model that informs central units. So again, at that start of year where there's a lot of pressure on schools to do lots of other things, we'd have wellbeing, we'd have finance, we'd have counselling, reaching out to the schools, saying, okay, I'm meeting X student, where are we at with their engagement? Now that data's there and to hand. So again, it's that point in time kind of point. Other added benefit, process improvements. Most, it's about the efficient use of the staff resource. I've already touched upon it, but at best, you know, what we've done is managed to erode that kind of cottage industry across each of the schools of however they captured attendance. Ongoing journey for us is about kind of internal reviewing of automated messaging and kind of to try and provide more resource efficiencies. I know Jisc are also introducing some stuff internally within that, so we're looking at the piece of work to dovetail both of those. Again, it's about kind of creating that efficiency of resource so our student experience teams can do that crucial bit of getting in front of the students. Mary already touched upon a key benefit that's come out of this is kind of the university's data. We've had to do lots of work on data cleansing to kind of maintain data integrity, to make sure the system's working as we'd anticipate. So that's been a key benefit. And then the last one, just to touch upon, which we're building up that body of attendance and engagement data, is about what we refer to internally as curriculum analytics. That's building up that data to kind of inform, underpin the B3, the TEF continuation, completion and progression metrics. So lots of benefits to kind of sell, really, from our perspective. I'm on about selling internally within the university for our colleagues to kind of understand and buy into the product.
And just sort of picking out from that, you talked about the cottage industries there. What's been the main reason that they've been happy to move from doing their own stuff to using a centralized system?
Okay, so to be honest, you know, the University of Sulfur, we got probably 1,200 academics, and in our infinite wisdom, we didn't go with the advice from Jisc to pilot and go across a certain area. So we've gone full big bang across 25, 30,000 students, level 3 to level 7. So it's a continued journey. At best, we've got staff who fully embrace with this, recognise, move forward, and at worst we've got those who are resistant to change and not understanding the benefits. But essentially, once staff understand how kind of, I think the key thing I keep coming back to is that point in time data. We've then created internal reporting off the back of that. So literally, you know, that thing of, and I go back to it in the days of old, passing across a sheet of paper or a set of sheets of paper covering the first few weeks and then expecting a response back to, well, which of my students aren't attending. It's kind of, right, we've got a system now where it's as simple as the role for you is to basically issue an event call for students to record their attendance. From that point in, we'll get data back to you at a near point in time. So that's the key sell for us internally to our academic community.
Thanks, Tony. That's really good. So we kind of touched around this, talked around it a bit as well. Is how important do you think that government and policy, governance and policy, has been to underpinning this implementation for you?
Okay, so yeah, we've been through and continuing with this, and especially with the introduction of the enhanced version of the platform. So we've been in a continued project status, and we're shortly moving to this being a business as usual product. So that in itself brings internal challenges in securing resources. And again, going back to Mary's point, interesting within the Jisc community that I kind of come away a little bit reassured that it's not just us at Salford that have got those same challenges. But yeah, what was crucial for us, certainly in the early phases, was having a project sponsor who was completely bought into this and recognising that moving forward, what we need is an academic product sponsor who's going to do the same thing. So we're looking along the lines of our PVC for teaching and learning, because ultimately it's about enhancing the student experience. Regarding policy, then certainly a key thing we recognised early on was ensuring students understood why we were capturing this data. And we did that by introducing a full process, and this all being introduced during Welcome or Induction Week. And the student comms has been crucial to this, you know, to emphasise this is non-punitive, and it's assisting in identifying those students who do require support and are struggling across the whole student population. Students come from FE invariably and kind of move to a different position where, from being monitored at college literally to parents being called up within an hour to actually I can turn up or not here. So the message is about ultimately, you know, for a general student, this can't be punitive, but it's about support. It's about identifying if you're not engaging and reaching out and getting you back on board. Inevitably within the system, students potentially gamifying as they would do, then we recognised early on the importance of identifying where that might happen. So we've embedded that. So yeah, this isn't about kind of capturing attendance data for punitive measures. It's about providing that support. But equally, you know, don't gamify, don't say you're there when you're not there. You wouldn't do, you know, what we're trying to do is teach those students to go out to industry. You wouldn't do that once you're out in the working world. So why would you think it's right here now? And again, trying to underpin that message about actually, you know, this is about identifying where you might not be attending and then reaching out and providing that support. And I guess the last point just on that is, at best, where we feel that's landing is where we get feedback students are actually saying to academics, actually, you've not issued an event code here, I can't sign into my attendance, which is quite ironic, which then kind of moves into the other side about how important the comms is kind of on the staffing side.
Yeah, and so I mean, we've kind of talked around the comms to students, and you mentioned just there about staff, and I just wondered if there've been any challenges, particularly around communications and getting that embedded within the staff.
Yeah, that was the other thing we recognised, as well as obviously communicating to students exactly what this was about. It was crucially communicating to staff, and early on we recognised staff buy-in to this was absolutely crucial. We continue obviously to work with our stakeholders, our users, as I touched on before, effectively because we've gone big bang across the whole level 3 to level 7 undergrad, postgrad. That does typically involve the majority of our academic community. We've got 1,200 academics across our 4 academic units and languages department. So we look for continuous feedback, which we in turn look to feedback to Jisc about ongoing enhancements to the platform itself. But regarding the comms, yeah, the initial launch was crucial. Then we had a whole piece about landing the communications so staff understood the difference between the original version of the platform and the enhanced version of the platform. Quite ironic, really. Quite a lot of the time I'm having to explain to them that actually you said this with version 1 of the platform. We've gone back to Jisc along with another group of clients, and actually Jisc have now delivered on kind of what you were saying wasn't working for you, and now it's doing it. And they're like, oh, we didn't realise. So yeah, that at best kind of feeds back. So yeah, that ongoing conversation with the student, with the staff, staff training on an ongoing basis, the effective rollout. We're in where we are with the Jisc platform now is this is continuing to be enhanced. So the importance of effectively rolling out the new functionality. So again, they're understanding. And then at a high level, it's just about enhancing the benefits and the necessity of staff to do things differently. It kind of falls outside of the project, but the project wouldn't work and the platform wouldn't work if staff kind of still maintain this mindset of, we've always done it like this. We'll always pass around a paper sheet because that's what we've always done. It's kind of, no, I know I keep going back to it because I'm scared by it, to be honest, Jim.
Yeah, as we all.
Scared, absolutely, yeah. And ultimately, it is about supporting, kind of enhancing the student experience. So yeah, you buy into doing things a little differently, and you'll get the benefits out of that. And I think that is a continued journey. you know, across that academic population, there are those who are absolutely recognising and reaping the benefits, and there are those who are a little more reluctant and therefore not reaping the benefits out of that. The other bit I'd just touch upon in all the kind of continued consultation and communication with staff is about importance of trust in the system and the data that's coming out of it. And part of that has been a challenge because, again, it's understanding how that data is kind of being portrayed, how they're interpreting it. We've created an internal set of reports off the reports that are kind of flushed out from the system itself. So as well as visually on screen, I can see as a personal tutor how my students doing. I can see as a module leader how my group of students are doing. I can see as a program leader how my overall group are. Then actually we then within the internal reporting and the data we get out of the system provide that so they can export that out and understand what they're getting from that. So I think, yeah, a number of challenges. The other thing just to touch on is across the institution, because of the way we rolled it out, it isn't a case of one size fits all. So inevitably we'll always have varying views. So again, it's about managing that as an ongoing journey with our academic colleagues.
Real. And my sort of very last question I'll just think is like, so what do you think your implementation of attendance monitoring has done that's enhanced the student experience at Salford?
Okay, I guess at a high level, it's, you know, I've touched upon it. It's about providing that support in a timely manner that we weren't ever in a position to do. You know, I've kind of sat in schools and the frustration of kind of feedback from students who've left the university about, I kind of sat there and kind of, I wasn't reached out to, so I kind of got to an end point of withdrawing. And at that point, trying to speak back to the student, get them back on board, inevitably, they've kind of, so it's that timely kind of data that we can provide to kind of underpin that student experience and crucially, obviously, get them back on board. I think the other key benefits is it's kind of, this is underpinned a number of kind of internal kind of initiatives that were already in place effectively. So across each of the schools, we already had engagement and retention strategy. What it was a lot more clunky because the data to kind of feed into those was a lot less timely. Now, to that point, obviously, we can identify by the end of induction week which students haven't attended anything or been on the VLE to start look round. So straight away from day one of teaching, we know who's already on the radar. We get to the end of week 2 and all of a sudden, actually, students have missed induction, which is the correlation between students obviously not engaging with an induction and then struggling. And then we move into week 1 of teaching. So identifying those students. So that imports that as a specific example. We've introduced a PAL scheme, a peer assisted learning scheme. And again, the attendance monitoring underpins that. And again, a direct correlation with those students who are engaging with that particular scheme and our data identifying attendance wise, whether those students are doing. And probably just maybe another couple of examples, and I suspect it'd be the same across the sector. It's that thing, we call them internally reasonable adjustment plans. And again, anecdotally, what we've had fed back is students would meet our central units to put the reasonable adjustment plan in place. And we're already maybe 2-3 weeks in, inevitably, obviously, the pressure resource to meet with those students at the start of year. But again, that data informing at that point of the meeting with our central colleagues that actually, yeah, those students have been engaging, or actually there's already a kind of bit of a radar call here that the data showing they're not attending classes. So let's ensure we've got those wraps in place and they're fit for purpose. And then lastly, what we've got is a fit for purpose attendance monitoring system that underpins our Home Office Tier 4 student visa monitoring requirements. Previously, again, paper-based system, students having to queue at the end of a class to get a tutor to kind of sign a form, students having to upload that into a separate system. Yeah, so from a student experience perspective, it's great. They get the event code, input that, and the data shows they've kind of done. So there's probably a few examples of kind of why, from a Sulfur perspective, this has just been kind of pivotal to moving us forward.
Thanks very much, Tony. James, I think, am I handing back to you?
I think we're going to see the system in action now. So,
Straight in. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Right. Here's where the suspenseful music plays as I try and share the screens. I always enjoy the fact that Zoom numbers them in an entirely different way to anything else. So I'm hoping everybody can see that. Let's go share that.
It's coming.
It's telling me I'm sharing.
There we go. Yeah, got it. Thanks, Jim. Lovely.
And hopefully you can see a list of students there. Yeah, if you're doing a thumbs up, I can't see. Okay, so this is our landing page, and here you can see that I'm impersonating Jenny Harrison. Jenny's a personal tutor, and so she has students that are directly linked to her. And we built the redeveloped platform to be straightforward to use, and that regardless of whether you're doing attendance or learning analytics and attendance, the skills and the way it works just operated in the same way. So here you can see the platform I'm in with all the bells and whistles. You can see various different metrics here. The only real difference between that and the other platform, and here you can see this is the same user logged in, and I can see the same students. But here I can only see attendance and day since last activity. And so the only difference really between attendance and learning analytics for a user is that they can see more insight about the user. And I'll go back to the main platform. It seems desperate for me to do something different. Thanks, Zoom. And here we can see that as well as attendance and day since last activity, we've got information about VLE activity and submissions, as well as a summary metric which considers all of the activity about the student. Regardless of the platform that you're in, you can sort it depending on what you're particularly interested in for your students. So one of the things that we heard quite clearly from our colleagues out in the sector was that increasingly there are challenges for resource and the time. And so one of the changes for our new platform was a move from presenting data to actionable insight. So you've got 5 minutes a day. Which of the students I need to interact with? And how quickly can I get that insight and take that action? And that's really driven everything that we say. Any business language that you see anywhere in the product is entirely configurable. So some people call modules units, and some people call events different things as well. So they might call them just straightforwardly lectures. And so everything that you see, wherever it is in the platform, we designed the new platform to be adaptable so that you can adjust it to fit your language and processes and not the other way around. The other thing that we had feedback from our customers was that wherever we're seeing a list of students, being able to highlight just those with a visa, and you'll see that throughout the product as I demonstrate it going on, as well as the additional filters on the screen. James at the start mentioned the importance of people being able to trust the platform and who they're seeing it. So we developed a really extensive roles and permissions functionality within the new platform. And this allows people to see the information that they need to do to support your students, but nothing more. And it's entirely an additive system. So typically a user will hold multiple roles. So Jenny, as well as being a personal tutor for these students, she's also linked to students via modules and via courses, and who she'll see depending on those changes. And we allow people to hold multiple roles over multiple scopes seamlessly. So there's no switching roles. Do I need to select this, that, or the other? People can simply see what they need to see to do the role. Okay, we're talking about attendance. So let's go and look at events. We've got some customers who send data through timetable exclusively. Some people who send a mix of self-created events and events created manually, and some people who just use the created feature for a limited number of staff. And so here we can see we've got a event which has started. These are events that I'm linked to. I'm going to go and click into there. You can see I've got this tick box here, include non-modular. We have events that are related to what students are studying, but there are also other events that might be study skills, there might be tutor meetings, and either of those can be stored in the platform. Going into the platform, we can see that this is a register of students who are expected to attend this event, and we can see the current attendance breakdown for the students who are attending. So currently, no students have attended this event, and there are 26 students who are expected on the register. From a student point of view, all they'll need to do is enter the code to be able to do that. I'm going to go to display code, which puts up the larger thing so a student can see that from the back of the room. I'm going to hop back to my main window and then show you what it looks like from a student point of view. So hopefully you can all now see the student view there, and this is monitoring from my phone. They simply have to put in a 6-digit code. I'm going to deliberately put it in wrongly for the first time. And there you can see that the student gets feedback telling them that this isn't a code it knows about, and so that they can't check in with it. If I go back and enter the correct code this time, and I have to stop speaking, I'm afraid, while I do that, it highlights to the end user, this is the lecture I've got them for. And here I'm going to check straight into this session, and I get the confirmation there that the user has checked in successfully there. I can also see upcoming events that are in my timetable, and I can also see a history of things that I've checked into. We do display activity back to students in other categories as well, but because our time's limited today, I'm going to push on and move things forward quickly. What you'll hopefully saw while I was demoing the student was that the student was marked as coming in late. That's because the session started actually at 11:30 and they've only checked in now. And if I scroll down, I can see that this student checked in. They checked in late, and this little box here indicates that they were a physical attendance, because that's the only type of attendance that's permitted for this event. You also see a star next to them. That's because Apollo wasn't expected on this register. And we also gathered that they attended this session, but noted that they weren't expected. If I come over to the create event screen, you can see that I've got the options to create events, and I'm going to do one that's live now, and I'll do this again for 11:30. And this time I'm going to say that it is related to that module, but I'm going to uncheck this populate from register from the module. And this was a feature that we brought in from customer feedback. And when I create the event here, you should see that there are no students currently added to the register. But here, if I check in, you'll see that the students automatically get populated to the register. So that can be useful for both sessions that are additional sessions for the module, and you don't want to negatively impact the other students on that module with the attendance, but particularly we see these as being useful for people where they don't relate to a module, and it could be a study skills or any other non-modular event. So here, let's have this a study skills event. Doesn't relate to the module, but this time it's a hybrid event. Here we can say again, we've got the code, we've got no students who are expected to attend. I can add students who are expected to it manually, so I can add in students like so. And I can also, if I come back to my demonstration student, check them into this event. And here I've got a non-modular event, but because this is a hybrid event, I'm actually asked to provide a method for checking in. So we've looked at being able to capture attendance, and we designed it to be as frictionless as possible. So students didn't have to do anything too complicated to be able to register their attendance, and that staff didn't have a great amount to do other than providing the students access to the code. In terms of reviewing what attendance is there, we can see at the module level, we can see the attendance history for it. This tends to be quite popular with staff because it looks like a spreadsheet. Throughout the product, you can filter to what you're interested in. So you could change your date range. You can change how you're reviewing the data. So you could see, okay, well, maybe compare my students or compare my events. For people who are doing full LA, we can see the performance of students. And here this takes into account their engagement with the module rather than their overall engagement. Like we said elsewhere, the filters that are available on your list of students for students with visas are available throughout the product as well. Right at the top of the screen, we can also see a bit of insight here. So we can see the total events that are associated with this module, but also events with no participation. So probably some events that should have been cancelled or maybe were cancelled on the VLE, but weren't cancelled by telling people through things like that. As well as seeing information at the modular level, we can also go in and look at a student level and see their performance. So here we can see a nice AI generated picture of the student. Obviously, you might have better, more representative photos of there. Some basic details about the student and their overall engagement. We have the recent history of the student, so we can see check-ins that they've made and other use of things if you're doing full LA. You've then got the breakdown by individual modules and the student's attendance history. And again, here we can look at just all of the events that relate to the students, just those events that relate to their overall metrics. We can also go, okay, well, I might have a particular interest in just lectures. We can look at the performance of the student like that. So there's several filters in the product that allows you to really drill down into what you're interested in. The performance graph is a history over time that allows you to see their overall summary performance, but also their performance in each individual metric. Talking about the way that we change language within the product, several of our customers change this to engagement history, depending on what they're interested in. As well as the information about a student's activity, we also have information about submissions within learning analytics, biographical information. Again, with the roles and permissions feature, you can decide who gets to see this. So you might be happy for a personal tutor to do this, or you might say that this is only for your colleagues in student support or wellbeing teams or the visa team to be able to access if it's appropriate to the role and the context of them viewing this information. We've also got information about their performance on active courses and previous modules. The other challenge that we were asked to focus on was interactions for students and being able to log when a staff member had either contacted a student or met with them, and being able to have them simply opened and closed. The interactions feature is very straightforward to use, and for reasons that will become clear, I'll start on the right-hand side. As I said before, any of the language in these first few boxes and the options in them can be entirely configured to fit your business and processes. The only one that is related to user permissions is this type here. And we deliberately kept this very white label. So you could either use this for different levels of sensitivity, so general, sensitive, confidential, for example, or you could use them more for a sort of a team-based utility. So you might have it for academic and general support, visa compliance and well-being. And then you would be able to determine within your organization who gets to see what. So here I've got interaction type 1, that could be academic support. You might be happy for anybody who's got access to the student to be able to see that. But if it's a more sensitive note, say it's a well-being note, you might say, okay, well, we still allow the personal tutor to be able to see those updates, but we don't allow course leads, module leads, and staff within the faculty or the local organisational unit to see it. Only the well-being team get to see everything. And then the last piece of this is being able to see interactions across all of the students who you've got access to. And again, we've got the visa filter there and controls to be able to sort what you're interested in. Very, very briefly, because I know we are very tight for time, I'll give you a quick glimpse of another view that we have, which is our tiers view. So you can see here, I'm now a different member of staff and I've got a different set of options here. So while Jenny has access to modules, Dominic doesn't. But Dominic does have access to tiers. And so here you can see Dominic isn't linked to any students directly, but he is linked to students via tiers. And this is where you can see all of the students within their purview. And again, we've got some additional filters here. So this allows you to pick out using the summary metric those students that you're particularly interested in. So if I just identify those students who have been flagged as red in terms of the thing, I get a count of how many students that is within this faculty or college, and what that means in terms of percentage of all of the students within that purview, and also adjust the lists here as well. And like I've said throughout the product, you can click on any of these headings to sort them to be what interests you. And again, we've got the visa filter present on all things like that. And I've talked very rapidly for an awful long amount of time. So I'm going to stop sharing briefly and come back to the room.
Thanks, Jim. I know we're close to time. I just wanted to squeeze in any questions that we got. I know Rachel's been answering some on the Q&A. I did see one pop into the chat, which is essentially about the codes and how do you know if someone's physically present? And I guess that's the balance between a system that is suitable for online learning and hybrid versus a system that tracks you when you're in the building, as it were. It's probably worth just mentioning some of the things we're looking at around code sharing and also some of the experiences of our users as well in this. I don't know if Tony, you've just thinking about the kind of policy and the way that you can follow up around looking at students who may not be attending.
Yeah, so apologies. Yeah, I was just trying to unmute. Yeah, I mean, the conversation's been obviously that we've got staff who are aware you may have a student who's claiming they're in attendance and submitting the event code. But, you know, the discussion going back to what I was explaining earlier was we had a manual paper-based system and that was just as open to kind of being gamified as well. The resource around kind of doing the checks on that. So the previous system was about a staff member having to sign to confirm the student was in the room. So in the same way, there would be nothing in principle to stop a student falsifying a signature and then submitting that online to meet the attendance requirements. So again, it's about the efficiency gains of and the resource gains, if you like, of moving forward to this as a system. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think every system is open to abuse. I've heard stories of, you know, lots of arms coming around the corner with lots of cards to swipe in. There's also the drawbacks about the cost of maintaining infrastructure around things like Bluetooth beacons and card readers, etc. We are looking at ways to enhance the codes potentially refreshing, potentially QR codes, certainly having unique references within audits as well. So I think it's a dual attack on this, really. It's got to be about the institution and how they're managing it on the ground and the messages they're giving to students versus what a system can do. But I think essentially no system is ever going to be foolproof and game-proof on all of this. Right, I'm going to just do my final bit of screen sharing before I say goodbye to everyone. Hopefully you can all see that. So this is just to say that we have a set of free resources that you can access. We have Code of Practice, Senior Manager's Guide. I'd recommend for any of you thinking of either embarking on this for the first time or re-evaluating and resubmitting. There's also some information there about wider well-being. There's a recent evaluation on the Office for Students' Mental Health Wellbeing project. So you can access all of those via the QR codes you can see there on the screen. And then finally, just to say, you have plenty of opportunities to stay in touch. So you can see that top link there. You can join our Learning Analytics community mailing list, which we've recently restarted. And also, if you're interested in anything we've been talking about today and you want a further conversation with us, please just contact your relationship manager and they'll be able to put you in touch and we can keep the conversation going. So thank you very much for your time. And also thank you to Tony and Mary in particular for their wonderful stories at the coalface. I know that's really what you all came to hear. So hopefully you all have a fabulous rest of the day, and thank you very much. Goodbye.
Take care, folks. Bye-bye.